Hello, my name is William Allen. This is my AEP 803 Module 1 presentation. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in a small town in northwest Kansas. I graduated with 8 from my high school class before moving on to Benedictine College, which is in Atchison, Kansas. I graduated there with my bachelor's in elementary education, and then I moved back to Colby, Kansas, which is just 20 minutes away from my hometown of Brewster, where I started teaching at a small Catholic school, Sacred Heart. K through 5, we typically have about 80 students. I started off teaching 2nd grade for a year and a half, and then I moved up to 5th grade, and I'm currently in my 3rd year of teaching 5th grade. A little bit about my personal life. I've been married to my wife Katie for 2 years, just a little over 2 years now. Our daughter Rosalie is now 7 months old, and she is awesome. And we spend a lot of time with our family. Both of our families live close by, which is really nice. Some other hobbies include playing sports. I love tennis, volleyball, basketball, reading, and watching movies, especially mysteries. So diving into kind of the meat and potatoes of the assignment, what is action research? So I have lots of good quotes from the materials, but to kind of summarize it, action research in regards to education is research that's taken on by the teachers and staff themselves. They direct it, they pose a focus question, they come up with a process, and then they carry out the experiments, collect data, reflect, and then share out their results. So that is kind of what it is. What is the purpose of action research? So the goal is the purpose is to utilize data and research from the classroom in response to a focus question. So as I mentioned before, coming up with a focus question, looking at a specific aspect of teaching or teaching practices, whether it's working or not in your classroom, and creating a plan of how you're going to dive in and investigate and see if that is working in your classroom or in your school or in your district, and then reflecting on the results and making connections to establish what makes for effective teaching practices. So taking what information you've gathered within your experiments and with your data and results, reflecting on it, and then seeing what's working, what's not working, and posing more questions. So the 4 main types of action research, it starts smaller and then it gets more broad as you go up, or down I should say. So individual research, you're just on your own investigating your own classroom and your own practices within education. Collaborative research is obviously working with others to accomplish a goal. You could be working to see a specific trend across grade levels or across classrooms, just to see a specific approach, or you could just be getting feedback from others or bringing them in on your own investigation. Then there's school-wide research, so as a school, looking at a specific practice or a specific element of your teaching within your school. And then finally, district-wide research, which again is just broader. So the goal of action research is ultimately to improve your teaching practices and improve your educational experience at your school. So you're systematically drawing conclusions based off of the evidence that you yourself are collecting. So a good, from one of the resources, one of the videos, she talked about moving from experienced to expert teachers. So experienced teachers, they've been teaching a decent number of years. They kind of have fallen into a pattern. They feel confident in what they're teaching, but expert teachers are going to continue to grow along with their students. They're going to examine their practices and adapt them to improve the overall experience and education of their students. And then a good quote that I found was that the typical goals of action research include evaluating outcomes, enhancing student achievement, and improving educational practices. Kind of sums up the ultimate goal of action research. Some of the main steps of action research, there's 4 of them that I can kind of find. Planning, taking action, analysis, and then drawing a conclusion. So within planning, you're going to research a question that can be tested. So investigate something that you can actually test and measure. You're going to read up on some literature to see what others have to say about it and how it could affect your experiment or your process. And then you're actually going to design a process of how you're going to measure and collect evidence and investigate this research question or focus question. Then you take action, you conduct your experiment, you collect data, you use all sorts of different things to gather that data, you analyze it, you can throw it into some charts, see if you find any trends, any conclusive evidence from what you see, and then draw a conclusion based off of that evidence if you can, and then share it out with others if you are working with others or if you feel that they could benefit. And then especially, excuse me, for yourself, you want to reflect on your practices. So reflect on your teaching practices and reflect on how you can make yourself better as an educator. And again, another quote that I found that kind of summed it up was that action research follows a pattern or a cycle which always involves planning, then making a change, and then reviewing the situation to generate learning. So again, it's this cycle. You don't ever really come to a conclusive end. Sometimes you can, but a lot of times it'll prompt you to ask more questions and investigate further. So the differences between action research and traditional research, the main ones that I found was that you are conducting the research yourself as well as participating in the study. So you're kind of involved in all aspects of it rather than having someone come in from the outside and conduct an experiment where you're either just participating or you're just conducting the experiment. With action research, you can do both. It's meaningful and useful information that can be gathered without much external input. So again, you don't necessarily have to have someone come in from the outside. You can use your staff themselves to drive the process. And again, it often leads one to ask even more questions when you get to the end of your cycle and restart over. So some of the common problems that are associated with action research, again, the results are rarely conclusive, so you don't always get hard and fast evidence, but you can get some results that lead you to change or adapt your teaching. You can kind of see what's working for some students, what's not working for others. Sometimes you might be put in ethical dilemmas, and that may affect your research and your process. So again, they mentioned some examples of perhaps students feel pressured because you're conducting these investigations. If you overheard something in the teacher's lounge, that shouldn't necessarily go into your research and your process. So ethical dilemmas can present themselves, and it can also be tempting to tackle too large of a topic. So you can stray from just your small piece that you're really wanting to focus on and get overwhelmed by kind of the bigger picture. Some other things I didn't put on here, you might need some extra time to do this, which is valuable, especially for teachers and educators. So it can be a time restriction. You can be restricted in your time. And also you have to make sure that the teachers and staff that are facilitating this process are well trained and well prepared to conduct this. That way they're not stumbling along blindly. So you have to make sure that there's some preparation that goes into it. So taking a look at my own teaching and my current teaching practices, I am still fairly new to teaching. This is about my 5th year, 4.5 years, I guess, and my 3rd year to teach 5th grade. The current times that we live in are crazy. So with COVID and everything else and hybrid learning and quarantining and all that stuff going on, my goal personally is to continue reflecting on my teaching practices as I go and growing confidence in each subject with the curriculum each year. So each year I've been kind of tackling a curriculum, getting more familiarized with it, kind of adapting it personally, and then working as I go. So action research I think could be more useful in the future. At this time in my life, it's a little crazy and I'm juggling a lot. So I am excited down the road to take this approach more, especially with some colleagues, but right now I don't think I can add it onto my plate. But the research shows that it can benefit both teachers and students. Like they talked about, you can go from to an expert teacher from just an experienced teacher if you use these and increase your student achievement by really tackling what's working and what's not working for them. So the research, like I said, I'm excited at the prospect after reading some of the research, and I can say that my school has not attempted action research in the past years that I've been there, just because we've had lots of changes of leadership and haven't really taken this approach. So like I said, hopefully down the road we can jump into it. So here I'll just pause for a second if you want to read through my standard correlation and my relevancy statement and reflection. And here are some of my references. If they're covered up, I also post them in the Google Plus community, or the Currents community, I should say. And yeah, that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for watching.